I asked the almond tree, "Sister, speak me of God," and the almond blossomed. Dear Julio Savi, this Japanese poem, shared with you by Hussein Danesh, appears in your book, The Eternal Quest for God. Although the book was first published in 1989, it remains timeless and is considered one of the most significant works by a European Baha'i. In this book, you explore major questions related to philosophy, science, cosmology, the nature of the soul, human growth, and the spiritual realm. At the heart of it all is a central theme: the personal and collective development of our spiritual potential, an idea beautifully reflected in the Japanese poem. In that book, you also emphasize Abdul Baha's teaching that spirituality is love in action. You once told me this: "In my life, there is before the eternal quest and after the eternal quest." What did you mean by it?
Well, the eternal quest of God is the result of years of study. And also it has its roots in the teachings I received from my father. My father was a mystic, he was a person who very, very often had mystical experiences. And he always talked about these experiences to me and to me alone. He never mentioned them to other people. And so, I absorbed from him so many teachings on spirituality, on our relations with the other world. But they were, in a way, in a confused situation in my heart, you see. When I began to read better understand the Baha'i writings, I discovered many of the things my father had told me. And so I felt the need to organize them, to find their true exposition in the writings. And this I did for several years. While I was doing that, I was taking notes. So originally I did not know I will have written a book, but I took notes. Then once, I understood that all these notes were significant and that I could organize them. And I did so for myself. And when I had organized them in myself, I had a clear vision of life. Something changed within me. The love for God, the tension toward the absolute really was something inborn in me, perhaps because of the teaching of my father, because when he spoke of his mystical experiences, his face was full light, and I was so impressed when he spoke about that. But when I realized that my life has changed, that something has changed within me, because I was clearer. I knew many things I didn't know before. Then I decided that perhaps I could publish it, But still I was frightened. I was frightened by a doubt. Well, this is, I don't know whether it is a problem for many persons, but for me it is. The problem of self, you see. So I didn't know why I wanted to share these ideas with others. And I went to a continental counselor. I had a very close relation with that man. And I loved him really very much. He was like a second father for me. And he was a close friend of my father too. So together, we examined the book in the whole day, in a day, only one day. He was very quick. He had a very, very lively mind. And when I told him about my doubts about this problem of a self, he told me, don't care. Just go and publish them. That was a kind of release for me. So I did so. And now I'm so happy that I did so, because I heard from many people that it was useful. And that was the reason why really it had to be published. And I'm very, very happy about this, and grateful to my father and to this continental counselor who encouraged me. Thank you.
In our first personal communication, you have mentioned the following. Many consider me a scholar. I, however, see myself simply as a lover of study. In that love, I admit I am ambitious. I have long searched for an approach to knowledge that transcends, though does not dismiss, the current academic method, which I regard as extremely useful for the scientific framework familiar to us today. I deeply admire science and scientists, yet I seek something more, a form of understanding that helps me become a better global citizen. That is, and has always been, the true aim of my learning. Then, I have noticed that in a letter to someone named Julie, a letter from 19th of July 1994, so only 5 years after the publication of the Eternal Quest, you were confessing the following, and I cite, I agree, my book, The Eternal Quest for God, may seem cold. While writing it, I have tried to be as rational as possible, to be absent as a person, so that I might express the ideas of the Baha'i texts with utmost objectivity. This attitude is suitable for one part of the public, but is not easy for others. When I gave it to my brother-in-law, a cultured man of great sensitivity, who loved me very much, he told me that my book had disappointed him, not because of the ideas I conveyed, but because he had found nothing of me in them. What is this other Julio Savi that your brother-in-law knew well and so appreciated? And what is this approach to knowledge you have sought to develop which differs from that you have taken in the eternal quest for God? What is this approach to knowledge that transcends, thou does not dismiss the current academic method?
You know, when I read the Baha'i writings, especially, and I mainly read the Baha'i writings, what I want to what I want to have from them is to be changed. I want to understand them, you see. I want to understand the words, the meaning of the words. And so I don't reject rationality at all. It is deeply appreciated. But I want something more. I want that those words penetrate into my heart. And I want my heart to be changed, to be improved. I want to become a better person, not for myself, because, for myself, it's not so important. But if I want to be a bearer of peace, a bearer of unity in the world, and this, I think, is the real meaning of teaching the faith, I must become different. Because if I don't become different, if I don't improve myself, what can I do? How can a blind person lead other blind, you see? So what I need that my eyes become open so that wherever I look at, I see the image of God. This is, this highest aim I have. Perhaps it is presumptuous, I don't know. But this is, the greatest closeness to God. And Abdul-Baha said, nearness is likeness. So this is my aim, really, in studying also. Also in studying. Very recently, I read this wonderful book by Paul Lemple, Revelation in Social Reality. Well, I took so much from that book. And really, even although I am 87 years old, still something has changed in me, through that book. So this is my understanding. I add another thing, you see, and I know whether this is right or wrong. This friend of mine, Julie, but it is not her name, because in my epistolary, I changed the names. Once gave to a friend, to a knowledgeable friend, both my eternal quest for God and the first book of poems I published in the early, in 2002, I think, something like that. And, this person say to my friend, I liked very much The Eternal Quest for God, but I like much more Remoteness, because there I found everything I found in The Eternal Quest for God, but written in a more simple way and more direct way. Perhaps, and I'm so sorry I didn't do that. My brother-in-law passed away, and I'm so sorry I never gave him my poems. I was ashamed. I was ashamed. In the beginning, um, I felt them as so personal that I didn't share them with many persons. So this is my answer.
Thank you. Talking about your poems, most of them appear to have been written either in Asmara or in Bologna. Why is that?
Well, this is strictly related with my life. I was born in Asmara. I was born from both parents born in Eritrea, born from parents who went there very young. So my grandparents went to Eritrea in the late 19th century. So I spent the first part of my life in Eritrea. I came to Italy in 1960 when I was 22 years old. And I came to Bologna. And I live in Bologna. I have always lived in Bologna. So my poems, my earliest poems were written in Asmara or Massawa, for instance, which is a very close town to Asmara. And the rest were written here and in other parts of the world, because for many reasons I traveled enough here and there. So I have two countries, I have two homelands. One is far and one is close. One is Italy and the other one is Eritrea. My heart is really there.
That's wonderful. Uh, will you be happy to read to us one of your first poems written in Asmara in April 1956 and entitled Your Broad Holes? How old were you then? It sounds like a poem from someone who is a youth, for the youth.
Yeah. Well, I wrote it for myself in that moment. In those days, I never thought that my poems would have been shared. Well, although I shared them with my closest friends, because when I was about 15 years old, I had a schoolmate, very close friend, and we founded a kind of academia, Neoplatonic academia. And in this academia, we were reciting our poems, but to each other, not to anyone else, only for us. And we were six of us, and no one else could enter there. In any case, this poem, was written when I was 17 years old. So I was quite young. I had, my adolescence was not so easy, psychological, I think, for many reasons. So these are my words, you see. I will read it. Although, well, your broad holes. Life, are you beautiful? None of your beauties have I yet enjoyed. Life, will you ever change? Is it illusion and dream that I fancy in my languishing mind? Do others too glean those few joys I capture from you? O bountiful Lord, what other gifts couldst thou bestow? I, foolishly, to other than what thou willest turn my thoughts and desires. I know not how to use thy bounties and the things of the world how to enjoy. Insane thoughts surge in my breast as deadly vapors, and I cannot control their blind impulse, their undesirable will. A restless adolescence, they say, is a prelude to active and fruitful days. For that one reason, I accept you, my life. For that one reason, I bear your pangs. Ere long, you will open your broad halls. Let them be spacious, golden, and bright, as I expect them.
Thank you. I love how this sets up the scenes for all the poems you're gonna write from that moment onward. And for those who will read your books of poems, they will find another poem that relates to this many decades later. But to keep to keep with the beginning of things, could you also please read us "All Are Thy Children" and "Upon My Heart Forever," which are from just a few years later in Asmara, the first from 1957, so a year later, and the second from 1958. And part of the reason I want us to share these poems is because they show how much you were concerned with spiritual themes um, that early in your life. Thank you.
All are thy children. It is truth. I see it as I see the sun. I feel it as I feel the wind. O divine sun, smile, shine on the world. All are thy children. Upon my heart forever. The epigraph is, and they shall see his face, and his name shall be in their foreheads. Revelation. I am thine, O my Lord. My naked soul presents itself to thee. Write down thy name upon my snow-white forehead. Engrave thy living word upon my heart forever. Well, you know, these poems have a great resonance for me because they were written just in the days when my father introduced me to the faith, you see. And the first one, you know, says my astonishment, you know, I couldn't believe that I have found something so great as I perceived as soon as I read so superficially the hidden words and the seven valleys. And the second one, you know, commemorates in a way the day 14 March 1958. That was the day of my declaration. So when I read, I'm sorry if you perceive emotion, because I go back to that room in the evening when I declared, together with another Italian man and two young Eritrean girls. I see them around me.
I, I didn't know about this. Thank you so much. Um,
Uh,
these two poems we shared show a deep resonance to spiritual themes that cut across religions. And still, there is a deep feeling of remoteness in your poetry. Remoteness is also the title you have selected for the compilation, which brings together all of your poems. The theme appears clearly in your poem "Only the Mind" from 1965. Maybe you could also share this poem with us.
yes, yes. Only the mind. Only the mind claims to be pure, but the heart feels the weight of disobedience, weakness, remoteness from thee. Well, you see, I don't know. I don't know whether this is a problem for many people. For me, it was. You know, when I entered into the faith, I thought that I could have been renewed, like for magic, just, in an instant. I thought that I could be another person, but I discovered that that was not. When I came to Italy, and this coming to Italy was a test for me. And for that reason, I felt this kind of remoteness. I didn't feel myself, uh, a good Baha'i. And I wanted to do so, but so many things were around, you see, and distracted me, or I considered them obstacle. One of them was studying. I was not so able to combine study and service. That was a problem for me, great problem.
I think the distinction between what the mind says and what the heart says is something that I really liked here.
Mhm.
Um, could we go to the poem that gives the title of the volume, The Heaven of My Heart?
Yes. Should the heaven of my heart grow bright, the meaning of things would change, and the thousand acts of life would blaze with light. It was a day when I wanted to find him in the small things of life, and I was not able to, you see. So it it was still, something difficult to understand that he is perfect, the faith is perfect, but we are not. And to understand that the imperfection of other human beings was the same as mine, you see. So I needed to go closer to human beings in those days.
What is the meaning of light in this poem? Um,
Well, light is mentioned indirectly, grow bright, and the second with light, you see. So the heaven of my heart, should the heaven of my heart grow bright. So if the light of the faith really uh, permeated my heart, and my heart would become bright, then I, I could identify the light outside. Since I had no light inside, I could not see light outside. This is the meaning. I needed light inside in order to be able to see light outside. That was my idea. At least this is my understanding today, because when you write a poem, you don't know what you are writing. It comes. It comes. It's such a wonderful experience when a poem comes. Oh my God, it's something so beautiful, and you don't understand. Uh, I I don't know. When I wrote it, I was 28 years old. Ah, okay.
I I find um, that in your poems the theme of remoteness seems to be in a sort of dialectical tension with that of his presence. Um, and I just love that there are both of these sides being expressed. Maybe you could read us the poem entitled "In Thy Presence" and
In
just
thy
and
presence.
because
Okay.
that would show the dialectical movement here. Thank
Yes.
you.
You see, it was written very few days after the other one, about 1 month, and it says something, the same thing, but in a different perspective. In thy presence, and when the water of thy word and the fire of thy love have removed the self's last veil, then shall I always be in thy presence, and my words will be holy, and my dreams heavenly visions, and whatever I shall do, it will be for thee alone.
I I'm trying to think now that in the Baha'i writings, water can refer to knowledge, um, and obviously fire can refer to love, the love of God. Water would be knowledge of God, fire would be love of God. And so just explaining that there are also religious terms in there.
Well, today I understand things I didn't even see those days. The words, the Baha'i words, the words of Baha'u'lláh were penetrating in my heart, you see, because the water of thy word. is something which comes from the faith. The word of God is a water that quench our thirst, that cleanse our hearts, you see. And also the fire of love of the seven valleys of the valley of love, you see, when it speaks that the valley of that love should burn the satanic self, you see. And then also the presence. You know, all these writings, all these poems today appear to me as a first result. Perhaps I was not aware, or perhaps my ambition was too much. You know, this is very bad to be ambitious in spirituality, unless it is, you know, a struggle, you know, an attempt to go upward without any other thing, any other desire than serve. Then it is good. Okay.
This dialectic between remoteness and a higher presence or state of being is what I think describes the mystical path of spiritual development as work at mastering the self or silencing the ego. I think this shows in your poem, if my hand slips away. Would you be
Yeah.
able to also read this one?
Yes. If my hand slips away. If my hand slips away, hold it in thy grasp. And if my eyes turn toward other than thee, to thee draw them back. And if my tongue utters a single word, which is not for thee, make it silent. And of faith, within and without me, all else which is not for thee. Well, you know, I felt the need to devote my whole life to the faith, but so many other things were there, you see. I had studies and, you know, I had the scholarship, so I could not, I had to have high, how do you say, quotation. And I had to finish very soon. Otherwise, I was in danger of not finishing. So that was, you know, a tension in my heart. I know today it seems all so silly even, but in those days it was a real battle for me.
So there is real lived experience behind each of these poems.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes. It is my inner diary, you see.
A, the dynamic of spiritual renewal and transformation that we kind of highlighted so far also shows in another poem entitled In Thy Light Let Me Be Reborn, which
But you see, in this poem, you know, this poem was written during the fasting month, you know, 220 March 1966. And fasting is such a wonderful thing, you see. And so I tried to express what I felt in those days. You know, those are blessed days. And if we are sensitive enough, we can perceive many things that in other days or months we do not. So that was also a kind of prayer I raised to him. Trusting in thee, my soul calls once more upon thee. Turn toward the Carmel, my heart chants thy words. Renew my soul, O my Lord. Every night let me die, and the morning after, in thy light, let me reborn. You see, he says that every instant of that month is charged with a great spiritual power. And great things can happen during the month of fasting.
I like the idea that you know, the poem asks for the heart to be recreated again and again,
Yes.
which is part of that
Mm.
that dynamic of spiritual renewal that that I think shows in many of your poems. Um, you also have a poem that deals directly with the heart, um, entitled to the poor, astonished heart. Shall we continue with this one?
Perhaps I say two things.
Yes.
This point tries to describe the dynamics of prayer, because on the one hand, there is our desire to pray. On the other hand, there is our capacity to pray. And so here I speak of both of them. I speak of both of them. To the poor, astonished heart. In the silent day, remote harmonies of celestial spheres echo. Low whisper hover of angelic voices. Distant scents are wafted of roses, hyacinths, vervains. Ancient remembrance, musk-laden heavenly breeze. But the unruly flesh is sunk in darkness, and the mind raves while treading dark paths. Only at times the eyes can perceive in the dazzling charm of creation the divine breath, the sole foundation and reason of all existing beauty. A flying bird then enraptures the soul. A blue sky thrusts the soul behind its reaches. Rustling leaves in the wind make the breast shiver. It is the hidden, omnipresent mystery that no longer a remote remembrance is at last unheeded vibration. It is the indwelling spirit now finally revealed to the poor, astonished heart. In these poems, I quote words by Abdu'l-Baha. For instance, the indwelling spirit is taken from some answered question. And no longer remote remembrance is a reference to the Ruse Alast, this wonderful myth, Muslim myth that the Baha'i writings present us in a spiritual, totally spiritual form in Hidden Words 19, Persian Hidden Words 19. Do you remember that radiant morning when you were, I don't remember by heart, I'm sorry, when you were gathered all beside in my presence, you see. So this is the remote remembrance, is the remote remembrance of the ancient covenant that we have, taken with God. And that is the center of our life. So, the things are here.
Looking at the part that says, only at times the eyes can perceive in the dazzling charm of creation the divine breath, the sole foundation and reason of all existing beauty. This reminds me that a lot of people, when they have spoken to me about you, they have spoken about beauty and how they have learned to appreciate beauty from interacting with you. And beauty appears in this poem. So I feel like asking why is beauty so important a theme for you?
Well, I'm in love with beauty, and this is my nature, I think. And what shall I say? Baha'u'lláh is the blessed beauty. Baha'u'lláh is the ancient beauty. Beauty is an attribute of God. It has nothing to do with I like or I don't like. Beauty is an attribute of God. And then, I made a kind of reflection, studying the Sufis, which I studied, the best Sufis, of course, Rumi, Hafez, which I studied to understand better the words of Baha'u'lláh, especially the Seven Valleys, the Four Valleys, Rashi Amma. In those writings, I met the distinction of the attributes of God as attributes of mercy and attributes of justice, attributes of love and attributes of wrath, the two different kinds of attributes, and the coincidence of the opposites between these two aspects of life and of life everywhere is in Baha'u'lláh. on the one hand, he's so beautiful, he's so kind and tender-hearted with us. And on the other one, he is a father who judges. He's the father who, uh, correct us, didn't give us this discipline. So if I learn how to see beauty in his justice, then, I come closer to the coincidence of the opposite, which is the highest nearness I can imagine to God. For this reason, I love so much beauty, because it is a bridge. It makes me accept, the other side of the divinity, the one in which you feel, oh, you are, he's awful on the one side, but he's also so beautiful, so merciful. He's the friend, but he's also the chastiser, you see. So for this reason, I love so much beauty, because for me, it helped me so much, When I was younger, from the beginning, from very early, music was my first bridge towards beauty. Poetry came later, but music has always been my most direct bridge. I was lucky because my family loved music, you see. I had a sister, an elder sister, and she played piano really very, very well. She played, she was very, very, she played, the Chopin's valse, the great valses, you see, with great passion. And she played so many things. And I had also an aunt who played Mozart, so I had romantic music and classic music. And I was a child, but I sat there under the piano and I listened to those things, and my soul, flied. So beauty is everywhere if we are capable of seeing it. And in the moment in which we see beauty everywhere, I think that it's a very important moment for us. That is the reason why I love so much beauty.
Thank you. The same tense spiritual dynamic that appears in some of the poems we read so far is also present in relation to the powers of love and knowledge. I'm referring here to two of your poems. One is entitled Power of Love, and the other one, Despite the Light of Guidance.
Oh,
Maybe we could go for these two now.
yes.
They're not very long.
No,
So
no.
just say.
Power of love. The power of love held within our hearts resembles the strength of springtime, which, when winter is over, empowers the seed to sprout, new buds to blossom from ancient wood, and changes the tiny sapling into a thriving tree that first flourishes and then bears delicious fruits. O Lord, grant that this love may drive us along the ways which thou ordained for us, whereas we all use it differently to what thou willest. We can love and nonsense, we can love power, we can love money, we can love pleasure. And so for this is the meaning. For this reason, I ask our Lord to assist us not to choose unworthy objects of love, which is not so good for us. The other is despite the light of guidance, oh yes. The yearning for the still remote goal of inner knowledge spurs me in my journey, induces me to bend all my efforts toward thee, makes me rise up whenever I fall down. For it, I accept every arduous trial. But how often, alas, despite the light of guidance, I walk the path of error. You see, inner knowledge, this is something we discussed earlier, This is my goal. And it is knowledge as described in the Valley of Knowledge of the Seven Valleys. It's not elm. The Arab have two different words, elm and irfan and ma'rifat, you see. tell me something had something to do with science. Of course, I like science. After all, I am a medical doctor, so I studied science during my years in university, and I loved that. But of course, that is useful, very useful. But what I need is this inner knowledge, this knowledge which comes from a good use of the four criteria of truth mentioned by Abdu'l-Baha: sense perception, and the reason, and tradition, and insight, And the good use of these criteria implies that we purify these criteria, So I need to have purified senses and perception, a purified reason, a purified insight, and a purified tradition. It means I should really understand the meaning of tradition. So if I have all this, then I can reach inner knowledge, or approach inner knowledge, come closer to inner knowledge. And if we have inner knowledge, we become wise. And wisdom is something so important, especially if we want to serve the faith. If we are not wise, it is difficult to serve in the institutions. And of course, we are so few that many of us must serve in the institutions, you see. And inner knowledge in that kind is so important to be wise. Well, this is my reflection.
I love that. Thank you. There are two poems entitled Aqua Alta and another one entitled Sinai, which I interpreted as a sort of spiritual critique. Would you please share these poems as well with us?
Well, Aqua Alta, before let me say that I went to Venice in those days, to the University of Venice, because they were celebrating something about Alessandro Bausani. So we had this meeting, a nice meeting in a way, because we remember this precious scholar we had in Italy. In those days, we had Aqua Alta. Aqua Alta is when the high ebb, is this correct in English? High tide.
Yeah.
Is so high that it submerged Venice, So I was there, and there was water everywhere. So, you see, and then it came to me this idea. Surging waters, emerald surface where our enchanted eyes are lost. They slowly raise, submerging ancient sunken foundations. Like us today, heirs of ancient wisdoms, enthralled by surging waters of human knowledge, sunken into slimes of I don't know, I don't believe, unwilling to raise our heads toward the musk-scented breezes of the wisdom of God. Well, it's not that I don't want to criticize anyone, because I'm a human being, so I'm the worst of all people living today in Europe, and I cannot judge anyone. But the general situation of Europe is not so easy in these days, And that is my result. I ask forgiveness if there is something not nice towards the European civilization. But in any case, I suffer for this civilization a little bit. This is one. And the other one is more personal, you see. The other one is Sinai. And you can't understand this poem unless you know the story of Moses, you see. Because we want to see thee, and you shall not see me, Lan Tarani. Well, this, is a kind of myth in the Islamic world, you see. Moses was in front of God, but he didn't see him. And he asked God, please show thyself to me. And he said, no, I cannot show myself to thee. But when he showed himself, the whole mountain crumbled, you see. This is a story which is interpreted by the Sufi with inner meanings, which I do not explain now, but perhaps in this reading this poem, they will become clear. In their dreamless night, thy lovers look for thee. But how will they find thee when their hearts are dark? Where is the beauty of thy face when still their souls are accusing souls, accusing themselves and others? We want to see thee, they cry in lonely prayers, but thy denial always resounds, you shall not see me. And their sun remains untouched, its barren peaks towering high over their deafened hearts. It's me, it's not the other one. This is me. This is not other people. It's me. It's me, because I want to see him. But if I'm not ready to deny myself, and I don't know whether I'm really ready to deny myself totally, well, I cannot see him. You see, this is dramatic fiction. My life is happy. Well, these are moments and are instants, you see, when this poem comes and you perceive something which is not your daily life. Of course, this is not my daily life. I had so many instants of happiness everywhere, everywhere. In Italy, in Asmara, in China, especially in the Holy Land. And these are beautiful moments, but there are moments in which I feel like this, and because I want to be close to God and I feel far from Him. Well,
and that's the yearning that
the yearning.
accompanies the remoteness.
Exactly. This is a kind of yearning, you see. So it's a kind of yearning.
Next, Fireflies and This Morning My Muse are poems about the theme of nearness in friendship and love that I find beautiful. And these are short ones as well.
This is tender because it was written for a friend, you see. I had this friend, and you don't mean I write Fireflies only, or should I read also Fireflies?
Fireflies, yeah.
Oh yes, Fireflies. Both of them were devoted to the same friend. A new friendship I discovered, and it was a very beautiful experience for me. In 1990, I was 60 years old. And usually these kind of friendships arise when you are young, when you are an adolescent. But I met this person when I was 60. But I had such a strong friendship with him that some poems came. This is one. And it describes, an evening we spent among fireflies. Tender, glowing, in the night they make eyes among the trees. An instant throb of yearning love. While the dark is pressing all around, they fly here and there in silent agreement. A simile of my throbbing heart, a brief but intense glow to tell you, here am I beside you. I read the other one also. This morning, my muse. This morning, my muse kept close to me. At the first poem she gave me, I smiled in gratefulness. At the second, I was overwhelmed by joy. At the third, I hastened to you. Well, you see, friendship can be really a beautiful light in our days. And in my days, it is. I have good friends. I have very, very good friends, you see. Friends that come and see me and I discuss with them. Sometimes we also, not quarrel, but we have impassioned discussions, and they are so beautiful because there is no conflict. There is only the opposite which come one beside the other, and always we find a resolution, agreement. We see things from different points of view. So in the first, it was the result of the fireflies during the evening. They were so beautiful in that wood. There is a wood not far from my house in Bologna, and it was full of fireflies. And the other one, yes, it is true. I wrote few poems in those days. And then I thought that the best thing I could do about these poems was to share them with my friend, and I did. That's the reason. Friendship is a wonderful thing, beautiful thing.
There are a few poems that explore the theme of existential doubt in its authenticity. I Two of them that I looked at were an over-sharpened blade. Sorry, as an over-sharpened blade, and what is a dream?
Yes.
Um, and I think what is a dream is one of my favorites.
Mm.
So could you please read these ones as well? Thank you.
Okay. Well, I must say something that a great Italian philosopher who wrote a lot of things, Croce, a lot of things about poetry, he said that poems very often come in moment of discomfort, in moment of sadness, and that at least this is his opinion, and that very seldom you are able to express in a poetical way, a moment of enthusiasm or joy or something like that. And perhaps, I am under this influence, and so I did not read so many poems in moment of joy, but I had so many moments of joy. Well, I had a recent moment of joy when, when there was this Leila Baha'i. You know what it is, the evening, the Baha'i night, the Universal House of Justice let the people late in October, I think, let the people enter the Mount Carmel during the evening, and oh, it was such a joy for me to see all those people enjoying the beauty of our gardens in days which were so difficult in the world and especially in the Holy Land. So there are also moments of joy in my life, many moments of joy. Okay, as an over-sharpened blade, sometimes I'm taught as the string of an armed bow in the hands of an archer who does not yet know in which direction he will shoot his arrow. I am exhausted as an over-sharpened blade, growing thinner and thinner without having ever cut. I am a fugitive, hunted by 1,000 hounds. And what shall I say that may be true to all those who inquire, if I myself don't know what in my heart is true? Well, I know what is my heart is true, is my love for Bahá'u'lláh. But if go into the details, well, this is more difficult. In other ways, I know I love him, I know I want to serve him. How shall I serve him? What is the best thing I can do? Yes, of course, there is the guidance of the universal laws of justice. But what shall I choose in all this? And in this moment, what shall I do, this or that? Well, the choice is not so easy for me. So this is the result of a moment of doubt or uncertainty, so many things to do. I had prepared myself and now what shall I do? Do I really do something useful? Am I really useful in what I'm saying, in what I'm doing? I hope so. I hope really so. So that another is what is a dream. This, is a kind of response to the so many people I have met in my life that told me that I am a visionary, that I am, that I am looking for utopia and so on, that I dream, that my is a dream. So this is an answer I gave them silently to these people. What is a dream? What is a dream? The projection of a mind unwilling to grow up, or the vision of an eye capable of penetrating the hidden meanders of the future. I think that Baha'is are, person capable of penetrating the hidden meanders of the future. I see my fellow believers in this way. So many times, you see, especially one of my best friends who comes at least once a month here to discuss with me. Really, he is such a penetrating eyes. And when, I speak about my problems with European civilization, well, he always says something which is very interesting for me. So this is my way of understanding. I have a lot of dreams. I Well, one of my dreams was that of seeing the flourish, to the Mount Carmel to flourish. You know, when the House of Justice began to do that, oh, how exciting it was. And now I'm so excited by the vision of the shrine of Adab Baha. I never dreamed to see it, and perhaps I will see it at least in its image. For the time being, I consider it as an emerald. I saw it as an emerald, this beautiful emerald. Well, this is, a vision realized. And other visions. Yes, I have another one. And this is in a village very far from here in Africa. There are two villages over there. The villagers were one against the other. They fought one against the other for years and years and years and years and years. Then, the institute, some brought there the Ruhi Institute. And there were children classes, there were groups of youth, of younger youth. And once they thought to make a very interesting thing. They wanted to make a game, a football game. And they prepared two equipes, but they did not prepare one equipe of a village and the other one of the other village. They prepared two mixed equipes, teams. One was half of one village and the other half of the other village, and so the other. And then they organized the game. And so when the fathers and mothers went there, they could not, so how do you say in English, tifare? I don't know this word in English. I'm so sorry.
Differentiate?
No, not differentiate. I mean, when you say, go, go, go,
Oh,
please.
okay, cheer. To cheer the team up.
They cannot cheer for one village because they had to cheer for both of them, you see? And that was the beginning of a new life. It followed. They began to change the songs, and whatever song they had, the ancient songs, that despised the other one, it was cast out, and other songs were taken. Now I think of that village, you see, and that is a kind of joy. And it is a dream come true over there, and so on. And whenever I read, these reflections on growth, which comes from the International Center, Teaching Center, how many stories are there, which makes me happy.
Going to the next one. I think it is wonderful that you capture some, you've captured in the poems we've shared so far some of the tension of spiritual development. And I think the next poem shows us that this sort of tension is civilizational, it's collective, it's not individual. So it makes it easier to accept the fact that the dialectic is a normal part of one's life. So maybe we can go to the next poem, which is called Children of the Half-Light, which is again a concept from the Baha'i faith. Would you please read this for us?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is a description of myself, of how I feel myself, because I am a lover of beauty, and how cannot I'm a lover of art, you see. If I'm a lover of art, I am in the crowd of art. I love Renaissance. I love architecture, the past architecture. And so, but I also love the future, and the future is in the faith. So I try to describe these things. I hope it can be understood. I love the colors of the dusk, the sun that sinks into the gray billows of a limpid ocean, the western skylight that turns red and yellow, the light that quietly vanishes. I love the shadows that fade away in the waning glow of sunset. I love the eve on the beach when the swallows in obfuscated sapphire lightly fly, and its silence punctuated by swashing waves and stridulous twitters. I love dreams with their blurred outlines. I love remembrances that memory rekindles but never wholly enlightens. I love youth and its declining to itself, always hidden behind impalpable veils of mystery. I love the short life which does not give beauty time to wither. I love the ancient ruins that rise amidst the grassy sods covered with fragrant mosses. I am of the children of the half-light, and there is no high noon in my days. My sun hath just arisen amidst the gloom of a night which is not yet concluded. Thick clouds of smoke darkened its first days. As soon as he appeared, the sky was stained with blood. The plan of things are still indistinct, and still concealed are the tokens of his morning. And although I caught an astonished glimpse of his radiant dawn above my heart's uncertain orient, sometimes I myself know not whether this, my penumbra, is just the dusk of a day declining toward night, or the early glimmer of a fast approaching morning. I hope so. I hope that my days are the early glimmer of a fast approaching morning. This is my highest hope, because if it is so, well, then what I wrote, what I did, perhaps has a meaning.
The Night of the Shooting Stars is a poem that can be seen to continue some of the ideas just discussed, in that it acknowledges the powerful nature of human emotions in human life.
Mm.
I,
Well,
I I like that there is also this side.
there is a background which it's better I reveal. I was in Beijing. I was there for an international conference, something. And I was there with Mujan Momen. I think he will not be sorry that I mentioned him. We were in the same room. We were sleeping in the same room. And that night was the night of, of there should have been a shower of meteors, you see, in those nights. And so I was eager to see them. It was very late in night, about 2 or 3 o'clock. So I didn't sleep, perhaps. I kept him waking also. I'm so sorry for him. In any case, in Beijing, I didn't see anything, you see. So for this reason, this poem has, is in a way, it's also fun because I was waiting so much to see this phenomenon, but I couldn't see it because I was in Beijing and not in Europe. So the night of the shooting stars. In the black sky of oblivion, shooting stars draw their vanishing trails. The ephemerality of human passions, the dark appeal of joyous but fleeting emotions. And yet, there are times in our lives when their fading lights seem dearer to us than a lasting sunshine. Well, the story behind it explains why I wrote that, because if I had seen, really the sky all filled with shooting stars, you see, well, perhaps the poet would have been different. But in that case, since I was deluded, I couldn't see them. So I thought of other shooting stars that maybe sometimes I followed in my life. You see, I followed emotions or passions, which I would better leave outside of my life. But this is human being. We are dual. The duality of us human being, our dual nature.
There is a wonderful short poem you have written for the Italian Baha'i community,
Yes.
which I really like, entitled "A Thousand Kind Hands."
Yes.
Could you also read this one?
Yes, really, in those years we were about 1,000. And so And 1,000 kind hands took hold of mine, and with respectful love led me toward the desirable hearts. I felt the power. I began to feel the power of the Baha'i community in those years. You know, Italians are very special. Italians are really very special. I was always nostalgic of the Eritrean Baha'is, you know, which are African, so they are so different from European. But you know, in the years, I came to understand the meaning of the love which the Baha'is in Italy are capable of showing, you see. When you are among them, it is like to be in the warm water of the Red Sea, at least for me. And for this reason, I love so much to remember our former summer schools. We had summer schools with a lot of people. Once we were 700, you know, about 1,000. Almost all of us were there. And we had the presence of Dr. Furtan, and we had the presence of Mr. Yazdi, Aziz Yazdi, and we had the presence of Mrs. Marion, I'm sorry, Hoffman, Marion Hoffman. And there was also Leonie the writer. It was really, it was a festival, you see. And you could perceive love in every moment. You know, when I went to those summer schools, when I came back, I was almost destroyed because I couldn't sleep. You know, we stayed to talk and talk and talk, even late evening. So if you stay late evening, you have to wake up early in the morning. You sleep maybe 3 or 4 hours a day. This is not so much, you see. But this is, you know, these hands full of respect, full of respect. I'm so grateful to the Italian Baha'is.
I have also pulled out from your volumes several poems that I think relate to the seven valleys. I would be curious to hear any informal or personal takes you might have on any of the seven valleys. So maybe this is something we can touch on while we look at these poems or after.
See,
Uh,
yes.
of course, let me just finish this part. Of course, you have provided a full scholarly explanation at the end of your book, Toward the Summit of Reality, which I also have around somewhere here.
Yes, yes, yes. But you know, it it is so difficult to summarize, you know, the seven valleys. So I would rather do something else, something else. And I want to try this to find out. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. In 2018, the Universal House of Justice has published a booklet entitled The Call of the Divine Beloved. It is a collection of 7 mystical tablets by Baha'u'lláh. And if you read the 4th tablet, you find, you know, the explanation Baha'u'lláh himself gave of these valleys. So I would like to recommend to anyone to read very clearly. They find it at pages 65, 68. In any case, when I read the 7 valleys, I try to see myself over there. You see, I read somewhere that if one has accepted Baha'u'lláh, this soul has experienced in his own level all the 7 valleys. So these valleys are not something that we attain and then we remain there and then we go to the other one, like in a travel, you know, like in a trip. They are experiences which come in our minds and hearts continuously, and we go over and over there. And according to our efforts, on the ground of our efforts, and of course of his confirmation, we go on and we experience, and we have we repeat the same experiences of all these 7 valleys on different levels of awareness. So this is my reading, and when I read it, very often I found myself over there. the valley in which I most frequently find myself is the valley of search. Sometimes I am even in the so-called valley zero, the valley where you are heedless, where you are unaware, you see. And sometimes for this reason, I think of remoteness, because I perceive myself as in valley zero. But usually I perceive myself in the valley of search. I am a seeker. I'm a seeker. And I know I have reached, I have understood a little bit of love. I have understood a little bit of inner knowledge and of unity and of wonderment, you see, and of contentment and of feeling nothing. Something I have experienced, as every Baha'i has done, you see. And I hope I will experience more and more of this, so that I can be closer and closer to him, and doing things according to my level of understanding, you see, to my level of awareness. I hope I will be able to do something and to be useful in a way to my fellow beings as long as I live in this world, inshallah, if he wants.
That was beautiful. I feel like going back and restating that, The Eternal Quest for God was such a massive book for me when I first read it, which is years after, decades after it was written. But because it's written in a way in which it takes a lot of quotations from the writings and organizes them and compiles them and discusses them. It's a book that you can almost read uh, in the future, and you'll still have the same relevance almost as today. But Toward the Summit of Reality was a different kind of book, and initially I tried to read it the same way, like from cover to cover, and I found that somewhat difficult. And then later on, I realized that it was more useful for me to approach it as a vast dictionary of symbols for the study of tablets, like the Hidden Words and the Seven Valleys and Gems of Divine Mysteries or the Four Valleys, and for any prayers and any of the earliest tablets of Baha'u'lláh. And it was in that they were so helpful and so useful for me, all those chapters. And I I started going back and forth between them. So reading the book, reading toward the Summit of Reality is a very different type of reading, because it's like back and forth, rather than a linear cover to cover experience. And you definitely, I mean, the whole book is about the Seven Valleys, and so you have worked a lot on this, and we'll leave it there. But maybe we can go to some of the poems that I think relate to this to the Seven Valleys. I mean, you might clarify that for us. And I think the one we could start with is a poem that I don't think refers necessarily to any of the valleys specifically, although it might, but it captures the theme of return and the ontological circle of the Seven Valleys. And the title of it is Return on the Wrist of Your King. Could
Yes,
we start with this one?
I like this I like this poem. And I am a little sparrow, you see. I am there. I'm a little sparrow. And it is inspired by Masnavi, Rumi Masnavi, you see. I was obliged, almost obliged, to study the Masnavi. I read it all. I was in mountains with my wife and I read it all. Beautiful, my God, what a beautiful poem. And, this is the story of this falcon. He belonged to a king, but he flied away, and he fell in the hands of an old woman who was very bad towards him, you see, and so he suffered so much. And only after much suffering he could go back to his king, you see. This story is so beautiful for me. And so it inspired me in this poem. And also, in the lyrical, in the mystical lyricism, Persian mystical lyricism, birds are often symbols of the human soul, you see. So for this reason, we mention these birds here, human souls. So these here are different kinds of human beings. Fly away, O soul bird, from the barren moors of space and time. If you are a little sparrow, live in perfect humbleness the mediocrity of your days, and at the end of your dejected nights, perhaps the beauty of the beloved will cast down his veils. If you are a dove, live in the dear nest which your spouse prepared on the verdant hill of faithfulness. If you are a nightingale, look for the rose, and in the cool night of May, warble your song. If you are a falcon, fly out from the golden cage where the old hag of life has confined you, and return on the wrist of your beloved king. You see, the aim is always the same. If you are a sparrow, the beloved himself will cast his veils and will show his beauty to you. And if you are a dove, you can stay on the verdant hill of faithfulness. And if you are there, you're close to him because you are faithful to your spouse. And if you are a nightingale, you sing your song, and he will be there. The rose will be there and give you her scent. And if you are a falcon, well, okay, then you should go back. You should come out from, the prison of life, of material life, and go to him again. You can. I like this poem. I don't know why, but I like it. It is close to my heart.
I like all of them.
Thank you.
I think we can now go to the poems that I think relate directly to the Seven Valleys. Maybe I'm wrong, but that was kind of how I interpreted things. So the first one is called Search is a Journey.
Okay.
Maybe we can start with this.
Search is the journey which the yearning heart would like to cover in a flash, whereas it's long and wearying. And yet, there is no time there where the goal knows no time, a ghost existing only in the traveler's deceptive mind. And no stop exists along the journey, which is moved by love. Though sometimes its progress may seem so slow as to be felt as standstill, nay, as regression by the longing lover. Well, you see, I told you I'm a seeker, so this is very close to me, because sometimes I'm in a hurry and I don't remember Abdu'l-Bahá's word, come, slow, step by step. Patience is so important in this world. I would like to cover in a flash all this, but it's not possible. Sometimes he does this for some people, all depends on him. We are in his hands. We should do our best, but we need his confirmation. Otherwise, we have no result. And so if he decides that you should walk slowly, well, okay, you accept this idea, and step by step you will go on, step by step, day after day, resilience and times of trial, response and spirit of initiative when you are in other days, and perhaps day after day you can do something to serve him.
The next valley is the Valley of Love. I have thought here of the poem called Give Me Your Cup. Shall we go with this one?
Well, this poem belongs to a collection called The Gift of the Friend, which is written really almost all these poems are written in the language of Hafez, So in this language, human love is the symbol of the divine love. So if it seems that I speak to a human friend, well, in reality, I speak to the ideal human friend or to the real friend, to the true friend, which is Baha'u'lláh himself. And for this reason, this is filled with dramatic fiction, you see. So things are not what they really are. You should try to understand the meaning behind them. So it was a new friend. No fear comes from the novelty of this love, no risk from the beloved, but only from those mysterious chambers of my heart, where still no sun has dawned. Will the freshness of your cherished gift unclose at last the doors which open into those forgotten regions? Will you guide me out of this wilderness, where I am still roaming while searching for the beloved in his beloved ones? How great is my fear that myself may in his drunkenness once more be lost, whereas the insistent self may more insistent grow. From me, not from you, these fears arise. Therefore, yes, O cupbearer, give me your cup. I am ready to quaff it to the dregs. It's subtle. You should reflect on the meanings of this. The insistent self is taken from Abdul Baha. This is nafse ammare. It is the passionate soul. You see, this is very important. And the cupbearer, well, the cupbearer is the friend. Hafez wrote a poem, a Mathnavi, called the cupbearer. Sagi. The name in Persian is Sagi, Persian and Arabic. Beautiful poem. And also Tahireh wrote a kind of Mathnavi addressed to the Sagi. Beautiful, beautiful poem that by Tahireh. Okay.
The notion of the cupbearer and the symbols of wine and the cup, they appear discussed at length in Towards the Summit of Reality, and
Yes.
they point to these lines of continuity with Shia Sufi poetry and philosophy.
Well, that book is the result of really decades of studies. And I was really crazy, because I began to read it in Persian. And that was a kind of crazy things because, I had studied Persian. As soon as I came to Italy, there was a lady in Bologna, a pioneer, and she taught me a little bit of Persian. So I have a small grammar, and of course I had learned the signs, the letters in Asmara, because there I always saw Arabic letters all around. So I wanted to know what they were. So I had this advantage. But I thought that if I wanted really to go to the heart of the Seven Valleys, I had to read it in its original language. And so I began to transliterate, you see. I have the Seven Valleys all transliterated. My dearest friend, Faize Mardani, assisted me in this. And even earlier, before her, a very, very close friend who's, well, I miss her so much. Pari Ahdieh, another pioneer here in Bologna. Well, first by Pari Ahdieh, and then Farima, and also another friend, a brother for me, real brother, a Persian man. Now he's old as I am, Ezat Hirani. He's living here in Bologna. He assisted me in this, so I had a few help. And so, I tried to study those words, to search those words used by the images used by Baha'u'lláh in the Persian poems, and I found them, and I studied them, and I bought a lot of books. At the time there was no internet, you see, so I had to buy a lot of books, and that was my goal, the goal I wanted. I want to assist my fellow believers really to understand better this book because it's so important. And in order to understand them, to explain, these words as they are in the poetical imaginary of the Persian people. Persians are lucky. They love poetry. They have poetry in their blood. They have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful literature in this sense. And so, I wanted to bring this great, great, great heritage to Europeans, to Western people, to Americans, to Western people. You see, that was my aim. I hope I did something for that. I hope so. Really hope so. In any case, okay, let's go on.
Absolutely. For the third value, which is the value of knowledge, we have two poems. The first one is He Knows Me, and the second one is called Reverie 2. Maybe you could go for this one
Well,
as well.
this is something to do even with human love, because sometimes we are afraid to love people. We are afraid to love people because love is not the one the romanticism describes. It's not the love which is in movies and in romance and so on. Love is fire. It burns. My God, it burns. But then, if you accept this burning, well, then you see, if the veils of the satanic self are burned, then love gives a great joy. But you have courage. You must have courage to love. So this has something to do with this first poem. He knows me. Do I know you? Do you know me? Knowledge is an embrace. Still, I did not embrace you as I want to. Knowledge is nearness. Am I near? No, I'm not yet as near as I want to. Knowledge is light. Is there light between us? No. Sometimes I see a boundless ocean between you and me. It is the murky ocean of the unknown self. But soon I will cross it, till I will reach you, my beloved. My journey will be long and arduous among the surging billows of those gloomy waters. Faith will be my beacon, love my vessel. Therefore, be sure I will soon come closer and closer, and those expanses will be finally crossed. On your shore, beauty will be unveiled to yourself, to myself. Because if we really learn how to love people, we find beauty in them and in us. Then the second one. The second one is a dream, is a kind of dream, an inner experience, which I try to express. At long last, the friend appeared in my dream, the river of his word still flowing from his honeyed tongue. Thou claimest I am the Lord of all being, I said, and I accept it. But let me grasp, I pray thee, the gift of thy words. I was still talking, as the friend opened his wide arms to hold me tight upon his breast. In that embrace, the insistent self loosened its grip. My mind was overwhelmed by a surging billow of love. Reality, albeit unknown, finally shined forth. You see, we have to surrender. The greatest thing, one of the greatest things we can do is to surrender to his love. And if we surrender to his love, we will perceive it. And if we perceive just for an instant his love embracing us, oh, we're really strong always.
The next one is the fourth valley, which is the valley of unity. And here we have a poem called Two Hearts. And I remind the listeners that, I remind the listeners of the discussion we had at the beginning about Bologna and Asmara.
Yes.
Because that, I think, connects to this poem.
Yes. You know, the dramatic fiction in me, my dual nature, we have a dual nature, all of us. My dual nature finds expression in my love for and nostalgia for Asmara and Eritrea, which is very strong, and my love for Bologna, also where my children were born, where I lived all my life, where I've served the community because I've worked as a gynecologist. So how many children have I seen, you know, during their birth, you see? I'm a gynecologist there. So, and I'm attached also to Bologna, you see? So my two hearts. I am two hearts, and I do not remember the day when I was not. One for the heaven, one for the earth, one for my homeland afar, one for that nearby, one for you, one for them. Whenever shall I manage to make them beat in unison, or even just to have them sing harmonious songs? And yet, I cannot remember the day when those hearts did not let out dissonant sounds in perturbing dodecaphony or disquieting polytonality. But perhaps there is no heart today capable of harmonious songs, and it is as yet early for a heart may be fit to sing the praise of oneness. I would like to be able to sing the praise of oneness. I would like so much.
The fifth valley is the valley of contentment. And for that, we have two poems. The first one is called A Greater Love, and the second one is just entitled Contentment.
Yes.
Shall we go through these ones as well?
A greater love. I yearn for a love above any earthly and human limitation. A love which may unite the two of us to each and all of our fellows in a wide embrace of love. In the meantime, I will not elude the constricting anguish of remoteness. It is the most precious gift from the beloved, and I am willing to accept it, that he may receive each painful yearning of love in our vibrant hearts as our offer at his threshold, and as a prayer, imploring for his transforming grace to be poured upon our burning souls. I know the meaning of pain, of trials, of suffering. This is good. This is good. And if you love this kind of experience, then you can begin to, you know, catch a glimpse of his beauty everywhere. But you must accept, you know, the burning of the fire of love. Otherwise, you cannot see him.
This remoteness relates to another concept I think that you highlight elsewhere, the desert of love, the desert of his love, being in the desert of his love, which I think is why I selected this as part of the Valley of Contentment.
Yes, the desert of his love is taken from a prayer by Abdul-Baha. Yes. Well, you know, I didn't think of that. It came out, you see. You know, for this reason, it's important to learn by heart the writings, you see. I am not able to learn by heart, but the concept have gone deeply inside, you see, so they come out. Contentment, this is, you know, this is quite recent, about 25 years ago, but I'm writing poem. I've been writing poem for 70 years, so 25 years are few for me. Contentment with this piece of blue or even overcast sky, with the expanses of red tiles, with the rocking pine tops, with the soaring or crotched antennas, with the taking off of land or landing jets. Contentment with the peaceful sounds of the house, with the melodies of Bach and Vivaldi, Martucci and Debussy, with the drawings by Caillot and Carracci, Mattioli and Beauvais, with the books, sources of the little I know. Contentment with his maid servant's rose petals, with the master's youthful face, with the light from perused and long-loved scriptures, with the greatest name that looks from on high. Contentment with thee. You know, this is my daily life. I describe here my studio. You know, all the things. You know, what I see from my window, what I see on the walls, what I see in music or paintings and so on. Perhaps here it's an attempt to see his beauty in the small things of life. It's a very, very, you know, tiny attempt to see his beauty everywhere.
Number 6 is the Valley of Wonderment. And I think the poem I have selected for this is called The Neutron of the Spirit.
Yeah.
Shall we go with this one as well?
Upon others hast thou bestowed, O mysterious unknown power, the gift of astonishment in the wonderment of innocence, in the contemplation of the beauty of creation, in the discovery of the ways of thy decree. Another astonishment hast thou reserved for me, the dark vertigo of the self, the awareness of its empty abyss of impotence and void, and together the impelling need to break its chains. Already have I met, though, the neutron of the spirit, which, striking the nucleus of the self, triggered its fission, a chain reaction that will release the enormous forces keeping tenaciously bound together its elemental particles. I was thinking of this tablet by Abdu'l-Baha on love, you see. There is a beautiful talk on love in the Promulgation of Universal Life, and the wonderful tablet in Selections, you see, and, you know, the chain, you know, the description of love as, you know, the force that keeps together the elemental particles which build our universe. I love so much the tablet. Wow, how beautiful it is.
And finally, we have reached the Seventh Valley. And I think I've chosen these poems, so I read this as applying to the Seventh Valley, and the title is The Song of the Insane Lover.
You know, I was in South Africa, and I was in the house of a schoolmate of my wife, and I read this poem. There was, you know, a priest also, and I was so astonished because the person that I thought would have appreciated this much told me this is so baroque. I don't know. I hope it is not baroque. I hope it is. I don't know why she said it's baroque. I will never forget, you know, her judgment. In any case, this is my point. Such is my love for thee that there is no nearness which may quench its ardor. I yearn for a union with thee which does not leave a place to I and thou, but to thou alone. It's not enough for me to be a pearl, be it even on thy forehead, or a sword in thy strong hand, or a gem on thy skillful finger. I will take on for thee 1,000 different shapes, and I always make myself a part of thyself, wherever I will meet thy smiling face. If thou wilt be a gem, I will be the light of thy crystal. If thou wilt be snow, I will be the whiteness of thy flakes. If thou wilt be a flute, I will be the sweetness of thy sound. If thou wilt be a plant, I will be life, which makes thine twigs to sprout. If thou wilt be a butterfly, I will be the beauty of thy wings. If thou be a dragonfly, I will be the transparency. I will be smiles on thy face, or love tears in thine eyes. I will be the steady heartbeat, happily there, in the center of life and love. This endless yearning of my heart may find its final, appeasing purpose. Well, I could add a personal note on this, I can say that the most beautiful years of my life have been those when I was elected the Secretary of the National Assembly, of the Italian National Assembly. I couldn't believe I was elected. But those years, those years where every instant of my life was there. I was at his service. Oh, what a joy, what a joy, what a joy, what a joy. I'm sorry for sharing this, but it is as if, this prayer of mine, I will be thy steady heartbeat. Happily there in the center of life and love, this endless yearning of my heart may find its final appeasing purpose. In those years, it was as if this prayer was satisfied, was satisfied. Okay.
Thank you. Do you have anything else you wish to add about the Seven Valleys or about how you see them? You once told me that all of us are in the Seven Valleys.
Yes, all of us in the Seven Valleys. Yes. Why not? No, I think I have nothing to say. I think I've told too much even, I'm so ashamed now.
Yeah.
If you speak of poems, it's like a confession, Otherwise, poetry becomes dead. It's not alive. So these poems are full of my life. For this reason, I had to speak of my life. But please, don't think I want to be immoral or something. No, I cannot be immoral. I only, I am a traveler. I'm a traveler in the world. I'm a seeker in the world. So since I know that all Baha'is are travelers and seekers, I want to say, here, this is my experience. Perhaps in a moment of your life, you feel something similar. Well, maybe you can find, just, an encouragement, a drop of encouragement in what I say, in my poems, I'm looking for two things. I'm looking, on the one hand, the pleasure of his beloved one for the sake of my beloved. But almost the most I seek is his good pleasure. Sometimes I perceive myself as Sheikh Mullah Ali Akbar Mazghani, and please go and read his story in Memorials of the Faithful. He loved so much poetry, but he was not able to write poems. So sometimes I feel like Sheikh Ali Akbar Mazghani and his beautiful story.
Thank you. As a sort of ending, I want to take into account the fact that your poems are also concerned with themes of social justice. I've noticed poems about the fall of the Berlin Wall, uh, about the Tiananmen Square, but I decided to choose the one you have written in 1999, and which is entitled Kids. And yeah, if you could read this for us, and then maybe I will try to see if I can connect to your website of poetry,
Okay.
and maybe
Okay.
we can share that.
Okay, I wrote it in the mountains, Niederdorf was the place where I went for vacation in the evening. And in those days, this continental counselor came and visited me. And it is a great honor, of course, in Niederdorf. And we spoke so much of Israel, of Palestine, of all the things, and it came out. this poem. Israeli children, kindred of Isaac, Palestinian children, kindred of Ishmael, are learning together Arabic and Hebrew. They read, so curious they are, the ancient stories as told in their books. In the unifying light of those divine words, they invoke together the name of Yahweh and Allah, in a place specially chosen as the dawning place of whatever mention of God. In their silent hearts, a great secret is unveiled. Call him Yahweh or call him Allah, his are the most beauteous names. Yes, they had always known. Ishmael and Isaac were both born of one father. Those kindreds of Abraham are now light-heartedly playing as all the children of the world. They are happy to love one another, as many say they could not, should not do. You know, this beauteous name, the most beauteous name is a wonderful passage from the Quran. Oh, this is so beautiful. The 99 beauteous name and the 100th is Baha. This is a very interesting aspect of Muslim theology. So, you know, this is my feeling. This is my feeling. I would like that really we could become waves of the same sea, of the same ocean, flowers of the same garden. This is my highest aspiration.
Thank you. I'm going to try to show the website. This is your website. This is the website for Remoteness, which contains your poems in 3 languages, Italian, English, and French. So if we click on the English side, there is a lot here. There are different volumes of poems. There is a preface and a very good introduction with Iskander Tintel. There is a poet's diary. There are 2 kind of chapters or smaller books in which you discuss your poetry and the inspiration for it. And there is also a section on letters, correspondence you had. So this is all accessible, and I'm going to share it with the video, but I just wanted to share it within the video as well. And for, you know, like the Italian, we could look at the Italian part as well.
It is the same, exactly the same.
Yeah.
Everything which is in English, in Italian, is also in English, not in French. In French is a selection.
Yeah, so the website is Julio Savi Poesie at .com. But we will share that. Thank you so much. This has been a longer session than I expected, but you did amazingly well. Thank you for sharing all of this with us and for all your work, which continues in the present. You are still full of energy and working very hard, clearly, and being a great voice. I am so happy to have met you in this way, and very grateful, and very happy to have had the chance to not only read your books but also read some of your poetry. But I think meeting you in person was the highest gift. So thank you.
My pleasure. It was a great honor to me to answer to your question and to be here. I'm so grateful, really. I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much for your work.